Hi, everyone. If you don't know me, my name is Michelle Curve. I am an autistic blogger for my own website known as the World of Autism. I've been running my own blog website for a little over 2 years now, and within over a year, I've conducted so many different guest interviews. I've done over 30 of them, including autistic self-advocates, professionals, therapists, family members, all to bring in the community together to share our own perspectives and to benefit the community a lot through education and advocacy. So tonight this is the first time I actually had two guests on. One, I had a guest that was on before, you may know her, and then I have one new guest. And so I'm happy to introduce back Maribeth Edmunds, and I am happy to bring on Kevin. How are you both doing tonight?
I'm doing great. Just great to be here.
Michelle.
Thank you. Thank you for having me back. I appreciate it.
Yeah, pleasure to be on with both of you.
Awesome. Can you tell about a little briefly about yourselves and then your connection with the autism community?
All right. Would you like me to start, Michelle?
Sure.
Okay. So I'm Dr. Maribeth Edmunds. I've been a principal in a New Jersey school for many, many years. And with my role, I had a large responsibility to support our students with special needs and also oversee our bullying policy. So I'll have some thoughts about that tonight. I'm also a member of the New Jersey Autism think tank, where we originally met, and Kevin met also. And I serve on the board of Eden Autism Services in New Jersey, which provides services for individuals with autism. And I'm also a parent of an adult who has autism. So I'm very connected to the autism community for decades now.
That is awesome, Maribeth. And Kevin, tell us a little bit about yourself and then your connection with the autism community.
Great, thanks, Michelle. And I also too have been serving on the New Jersey Autism think tank for about 3 years now, with Dr. Edmunds and with yourself. I've also too been working for about 30 years in the IT industry, specifically around ed tech. I've represented multiple technologies for individuals with autism and other intellectual and developmental disabilities. I've also served on the Board of Education in my town, so have had experience with our disability population as well.
That is awesome. That is awesome. And yes, with Maribeth and Kevin, we all have been together through the New Jersey Autism think tank for many years, and we still stay connected ever since then. It has been great. It definitely has been great. And now I want to transition into where we tie in now about with technology, as with Kevin, with your now recently with Stop It Solutions, and then with Maribeth with your background working being a principal in the schools and stuff, because of the fact about how technology is so integrated into the schools nowadays. And I could tell you from my view as a paraprofessional that we use so much technology in our learning and for safety. So my question to start off for Kevin is that how is your job with your company, Stop It Solutions, how has it been keeping everyone safe in schools?
Great question, Michelle, and thank you for that. Right. So our goal at Stop It Solutions is to keep students and staff safe. Right. First and foremost, that is our mission. And we do that by providing simple, fast, and powerful ways to anonymously report safety concerns, misconduct, harassment and bullying for students and staff to help others or themselves, right? We make it very simple to do that because we know students are afraid to come forward, right? Students are afraid to be labeled a snitch or a rat, or to have folks just not believe what they have to say. So providing them with that safe, anonymous, and trusted environment to be able to voice their concerns makes it much more likely that they'll come forward and be an upstander, right? And we don't consider an upstander being a snitch. It's an upstander voicing a concern about, could be a friend, could be just hearing that somebody's having a bad day and has had suicidal thoughts, or they're having challenges at home, and maybe just a simple report of, hey, you know what? Treat Johnny with some care today. He's going through some rough times at home, right? So again, just providing that safe environment and that safe space to voice concerns.
That is really important, because the fact of how much of, as we know, with like the increased rates of in regards of suicide thoughts from any kind of student, and just the fact that like having the technology that should be providing a safe space, rather than like how unfortunately that the way that people have used technology, like especially like online, like for social media and stuff that we've seen online with cyberbullying and facing with harassments online. And I'm glad to hear about how much that of your company is doing to reduce that.
Yeah, and that's a great point, Michelle. And what we've seen from from some studies is about 750,000 children are victims of school violence annually, right? 17% of teens have considered suicide. 60% of students have stated that they've been bullied or harassed online, right? So you look at all these different tools, social media tools, they're also weapons for cyberbullying, right? You know, and 85% of student incidents are witnessed by somebody, yet only 20 to 30% of them are ever reported to an adult, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, it's where the fact that like students have, due to the fact that if they've been a victim, that it's hard for them to be able to have a voice to advocate for themselves and to say like this has been happening and occurring and stuff. Maribeth, if you want to add anything from your perspective.
Sure. Kevin touched upon a couple of threads that I'd like to, pick up on. In elementary school, we start in kindergarten teaching children to understand feelings, to understand the feelings of others, and to be kind, right? And as a matter of fact, today's Random Act of Kindness Day. I don't know if you
heard about that.
Heard about that. So, so this is a perfect day to have this conversation with you and Kevin. And so we start that very, very early, and we teach the children there's a difference between reporting an incident and tattletaling. If a child is going to tattletale, then they're making a report just to get some kid in trouble. But if a child is reporting something that they've witnessed, then that's an important thing, and that's not designed just to get someone in trouble. It's to keep everybody safe. So those lessons and those messages start very early on. But what I have found in my experience is by fourth grade, when I talk to kids, when I try to unravel and pull apart what has happened with an incident, the kids will tell me, oh, I don't want to be a rat.
Right.
Fourth grade, these are 9-year-old students. So somewhere in the culture, somewhere And Kevin and I didn't work in the same district, so it's not as if we were in the same district. I mean, this is pretty prevalent. Kids will start to say, I don't want to be a rat, and that culture begins very, very early. So it's hard to dig out the information, and sometimes the principal's faced with serious incidents because things have gone on and no one has reported it. And so we want kids to be upstanders. We absolutely want them to feel really good about being upstanders, and we encourage that and try to make safe spaces for kids to do that. Now, the piece that makes this all the more complicated is this, right? Because now more and more students have not only a Chromebook device that they're using for their studies and for their lessons in school, but a lot of kids, by the time they get to 5th grade, have their own mobile device. And this is where we're starting to see the complication, where kids send messages and do unkind things on the internet. And so that's even a little more difficult, because that could be happening at home and kids aren't telling their parents and so on. So the more tools and the more conversations we could have, certainly our guidance counselors, our teachers, myself included as a principal, constant messaging is going on in the schools. And that combined with tools to help kids express and feel comfortable to say, somebody's not being kind, we need to stop this, is going to help all of us try to reduce these incidents of bullying.
Yeah, and I'd love to add to that, because you talked about this, right? And so this becomes a weapon, right? A weapon for cyberbullying, right? And our platform, right, focuses on turning this to be a method of doing good, right? Because we're meeting the students in their world. They spend so much time on their mobile devices. Well, let's make that an avenue for good.
Absolutely. Instead of using it as as a bad thing, let's turn the bad thing into a good thing.
Yep.
And that's where, what I'm coming out of this is that it's so important to stand up for yourself, because of the fact that this is occurring for yourself and for others, because the fact that with bullying, especially cyberbullying, has been occurring more and more as with students are gaining access to phones so early on. And I could say that myself, because of with the school district that I work in and the school itself, like, more kids early on are having access to, with Chromebooks, to cell phones, like bringing to school. And it just, that it does increase the risk of with cyberbullying, but having the right tools and using our phones, like for students to use their phones the right way, and knowing to be citizens of with technology online, that's the key to making it better for everybody online. If you guys
Absolutely. And through that, we want to help to create a culture, right, where every student and staff member is empowered to be an upstander. And because students and staff play an enormous role in school safety and well-being, right? They are the keepers of the environment.
Right. And it truly does take that. And at the same time, we also need the resources and the tools. Not only that, it's important for teachers, staff, and even for parents of students to keep an eye out about the way technology is used for the students. It's also about with having the tools and the resources, like with you, Kevin, with Stop It Solutions, how your company has been working collaboratively with schools. And so from that, using a resource like your company, it does not only like the staff and everyone is keeping an eye out with the students, that's another resource to make sure that there's a reduction in with cyberbullying and other forms of harassment and everything else.
Yeah, and you know, we're honored as a company, right? And we're a mission-driven first company, and we're honored to be in partnership with over 1,700 school districts in the United States, working in over 7,000 buildings and helping to keep over 4 million students safe, right? We're honored to work with our school district partners to help create that culture, right? That keeps their students and staff safe.
That's fabulous.
That
Fabulous.
is, that is awesome. That is definitely awesome. And Maribeth, do you think that there should be continue more collaboration between like with technology companies like Kevin's and like in schools in general?
Well, absolutely. And, you know, each district has its own tech, they call them acceptable use policies. And that's a standard, I would say, in most districts. I don't really know of any districts in New Jersey that wouldn't have that. So, you know, the school districts have some kind of a contract that student, the family, and the school that says, here's the appropriate use of our technology, and here's the things that you can do, and here's things that you cannot do. And if you abuse the technology, whether it's the device itself, or when you're on the internet and doing schoolwork, or you reach out to another student improperly, you know, there are consequences. It's called a code of conduct. And of course, there's a loss of privileges. So to begin with, schools typically have their protocols and their plans, and then making a connection with support from outside companies is going to be helpful to districts, especially that doesn't have a lot of resources on its own. Right. So if a district is a smaller district, let's say, or they don't have personnel installed to kind of, you know, have their own bullying, let's say their own bullying specialist, for example, having a company support that has tools in place and procedures in place is going to be a big help. So we can't understate it, because despite the fact that we try working on this from very early age to make children feel safe and supported and respected, there's still incidents where students are subjected to acts of bullying, and some students unfortunately take their lives, which is certainly something that we have to stop. We have to stop every kid that's thinking about hurting himself or herself.
Absolutely. And you know, the pandemic has just exacerbated all of this, right? You know, the mental health of not only our students but also of our staff has taken a beating over the past couple of years. But I do want to touch on, right, our most vulnerable students, so students with disabilities, right? We talked about this just very briefly earlier, right? But students with disabilities are disproportionately affected by bullying at all ages and in all learning settings. And it's not only their fellow students who are doing the bullying. Sometimes it's the staff that's involved in it. And what we've seen, and ironically, there aren't a lot of studies in the US about the effects of bullying on students with disabilities. But what I was able to learn was female students with disabilities are 4 times as likely to be bullied right, than their classmates without disabilities. And male students are 3 times as likely to be bullied than their classmates without disabilities. That's staggering, right? You see just the overall numbers of bullying in general, and to see that most vulnerable population is bullied at a rate substantially higher is definitely concerning. And we need to do all that we can to not only protect all of our students, but really make sure that we're protecting our most vulnerable ones.
Exactly. And I feel like that as we continue to learn more about like the ways with technology, because of how much it's been evolving, that I feel like just the fact that with using technology the right way, it's because the way that it's been used, especially over the years by the way the students are using, not only that it's important to monitor, but just the fact of teaching the right ways of using it. And that's why it's important to have the tools and the resources there, so that way we could reduce with bullying and suicide among students, especially including with our most vulnerable population.
And Maribeth, right? Maybe you can shed some light on this, right? But I believe it's about starting early, right? Really, the education starts early, and it's being able to deal with root causes of why these things happen in the first place, right? So taking a proactive approach instead of waiting for something to happen and then being reactive to an incident that has already taken place.
Right, and that's part of the community building that takes place in the school. It's part of learning how to care for one another in our environments that we share. As Kevin mentioned, I found the same thing, that there's few studies on bullying of students with disabilities, but the important thing is that students with disabilities are a protected class. That's that's a federal standard. And so students who are cognitively or physically disabled, I'll use that word, that might not be the best word at the moment, but we need to know that that's a distinguishing characteristic, and it's absolutely prohibited. And it's hard. It's really hard for the kids who with those acts of bullying, because they're not quite sure sometimes why someone's treating them that way, or if they're cognitively impaired, they may not even understand what is happening to them. And so the more communication we can have, the more our teachers have who work with our special education are going to be able to tell them that this is not a good thing, and this is how we are kind to one another. It all helps, because that's the hard part. The hard part is helping children understand that somebody's being mean to them. That's a hard part.
Right.
Agreed.
Yes.
And the other thing too, Michelle, what I do want to mention is that in New Jersey, twice a year, the superintendent of schools has to make a public report of the incidents of bullying, harassment, intimidation that take place in the schools. Now, of course, they're not saying who the target is, right? And they're not naming any names, but they will quantify how many investigations there are and how many are confirmed bullying based on the letter of the law. But what we do find is that children who are overweight, wear glasses, who are special education, those are the targets. Those are the target. We have other sometimes kids who have religious dress are victimized. So these are the things that we in the school need to pay attention, and it's important that we continue to send this message and have these with kids.
Yep. And just to add on to that, and I think COVID is going to continue to impact that for some more time. I was talking with a superintendent over the last couple of days, and his message to me was, in the next couple of weeks to months, as mask mandates start to be removed or made optional, or said, you're going to see an explosion of bullying and harassment going on, right? And regardless of what side of the fence you sit on, there's going to be those incidents, a major uptick in those incidents in the schools. Kids who aren't wearing masks bullying those who are, and potentially vice versa.
And kids may have very good reason to continue to wear a mask. If they're immunocompromised,
Yep.
or someone at home has a health condition. There's going to be some very important reasons why some children may continue to wear a mask and have a need to. So Kevin raises a good point that there's probably more to come, because the masks have symbolic of the tension between people who are following the rules of the health emergency and some people who prefer not to.
Right. Yes, you guys made a really good point about that, because especially with the fact that we still have COVID around, that's another factor that is, again, that's going to increase about even with cyberbullying, because the more that we've been like experiencing online, like where the schools have been faced with virtual learning and everything, and the way that students have to communicate with their classmates, their teacher and everything. So, and also just in general, with more people having more students are getting access to technology early on and home. So I think we could all say that like technology is going to be continuing to impact students inclusively.
Yes, absolutely.
Absolutely.
So I wanted to wrap up with that, and I want to just generously thank you both so much for coming on to talk about this important topic, because I feel like that this is what the community should understand, that this is what everyone is been facing with for so long, and by really working together, it could just make a better place for everyone.
And you're right. And Michelle, the good news is Friends of Autism have someone like you to keep the conversation going, keep it real and authentic, because that's the other part of it too. We don't want the conversation to be pigeonholed somewhere that's, oh yeah, we have to take care of bullying too. That it's inclusive of all our students and how we take our students and staff in our school community. So thank you for hosting tonight. I appreciate it.
Yes, thank you, Michelle. It's been a pleasure to be on with both of you. And I'll leave you with this. We talked about whether in the future technology will continue to play a major role, and it will, right? And while the work we do is important and impactful and makes a difference, we can't do what we do without that partnership between students, staff, and communities, right? Technology is one piece of the puzzle, an important part, but it doesn't work without the collaboration and partnership and support of students, staff, and communities.
Exactly. Collaboration is the key. You can't just have one thing alone. Absolutely. Right. Absolutely. Thank you, Kevin. Thank you. So for all my followers, just to make sure that you know that to follow me as Exceptional Show on my social media accounts on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. And you also could find with all my guest interviews on the World of Autism and on my YouTube channel. So thank you guys.
Good for you,
Thank you.
Michelle. Thank you.
Have a fantastic evening. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Okay.